good YouTube? It's Adam from iMusic Mogul. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to go ahead and remake from scratch Playboi Carti's 2024. For this one is 74 beats per minute, and the track is produced by Ojivolta, Earl on the beat, and Kanye West. We're going to continue where we left off in the previous video, which was breaking down the sample from Playboi Carti's 2024. I put together a really in-depth video of how that sample was created. If you're interested to watch that, it's about 8 minutes long. Go ahead and click the link in the top right-hand corner or the first link down below, and then come back to this video as we continue the remake. So we're creating a new software instrument track. And for the main sound for this chord section, we're gonna bring in Logic's vintage Mellotron. And we're gonna go over to just leave the blend over on sound A, and we're gonna bring in the GC3 brass sound. And let's go ahead and draw in that pattern. So those are the two chords that just repeat over and over. So we're going to select those two chords and just going to copy it over 2 octaves. Just to get a fuller sound, let's go ahead and duplicate that over the 4 bars. And then right over here on the 2nd and 4th bar, we're going to bring in 1 note. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, so now let's get to some sound design. Let's open up Logic's vintage Mellotron. We're just going to pull down the tone to make this darker. We'll go to about 9 o'clock-ish or 20. Let's go ahead and open up an EQ. We're going to take out some of the lows. Leave room for our 808 later, and let's take out some of the highs as well. Next, let's soften up the sound with some chorus. We're gonna go over to Logic's modulation, chorus, and we'll just use the default setting that loads up. All right, now we got to start layering up this sound to make it fuller sounding. So we're going to bring in a new software instrument track, and we're going to go over to bring in some strings. We'll go to Legacy, GarageBand, Strings, and we'll bring in the orchestral strings. We're going to copy down the same chord progression, and it's going to sound like this on its own. Let's just pitch that down 1 octave. So we really don't want the high end or the bass of it. We just want it sort of mid-rangey. So let's bring in an EQ. And together. Next, let's bring in a supersaw and really make this stand out. Okay, new software instrument track. We'll bring in Logic's ES2 synthesizer. We're gonna leave it on its default settings for now. Let's copy down this pattern, and this is what it sounds like on its own. Let's open up Logic's ES2. We're just gonna pull up the cutoff to make it a little bit brighter. And let's soften up that hit. We'll bring up an EQ just to take out some of the bass, so we leave space for our 808 once it comes in. All right, last but not least, we're going to bring in yet another brass sound, and this will bring all of our sounds together. We're going to create a new software instrument track. We're going to go over to Logic's Retro Synth. We're going to start off with a preset. Let's go over to, it's going off my screen here, to synth brass. We'll go to vintage synth brass. We're gonna copy down the same pattern once again. It sounds like this. We're just gonna pitch that up 1 octave. Pull up the envelope filter a little bit. So it kind of adds a little bit of sparkle. Then we're gonna blend that in. Now let's group all that together and apply a group EQ. We're going to select all of our tracks. We're going to go Shift Command G, and let's bring in EQ and just make this a little bit of a filtered sound. We're going to pull up the mid-range section right here just to pull it up a bit. It just kind of glues everything together. Next, let's get to the trumpet. Create a new software instrument track. Let's go over to our browser. We'll go over to orchestral. We'll go to brass and we'll go to trumpets. Let's go ahead and draw in that pattern. So we're going to skip over to the end right here and get to that little melody that happens at the end of the pattern. All right, now let's get to some sound design. I'm gonna bring up Logic Sampler. I'm just gonna pull up the release a little bit so it doesn't stop so quickly. So it kind of rings out a little bit. Now we're gonna go ahead and apply an EQ to make it a little bit brighter. So as you can see right there, I really pushed the EQ, the top end there, to pull that out. Don't be afraid to push things in the EQ. Some people say, oh, that's wrong. It doesn't look right. You're adding too much frequencies there. But if that's the sound that you want, go for it. Next, we're gonna go ahead and bring in some reverb. We'll go to Reverb, Chroma Verb. Next, we're gonna go ahead and bring in another trumpet. There's sort of little like soft notes that happen in the background. So let's go ahead and duplicate this right here. Create a new pattern region or new MIDI region. All right, next, let's get to the drums. Create a new software instrument track, and let's go ahead and bring in the 2024 drum kit. Here it is right here. We'll start off with the clap, really simple. Create a new pattern region. It's just on the 2. We'll leave the 4 blank. Let's go and create a new pattern region for the hi-hats. I'm going to step in a 16th repeat pattern. We're gonna go ahead and convert this over to MIDI. Let's get to some hi-hat arrangement. All right, so the pattern is only gonna be 2 bars in length. So let's go ahead and just shorten that up. So there's gonna be a lot of pitch work on this hi-hats here. So this right here, we're gonna add in a repeat. We're gonna brush in a 64th triplet. Let's go and just paint that in here. And then what we're going to do on the velocity to give it that effect that you hear in the track, we're just going to bring down the velocity all the way to the lowest value. So we're going to go from this high value down to low, and it sounds like this. Ooh. Except this one could be the regular value. Let's bring that back up here. All right, and then we're going to just bring this down right here. And this note is going to come out, and then this note's going to come down as well. It's going to sound like this. So let's go ahead and just copy this over. So we're going to add in another one of these repeats right here. So let's take that out. I'm going to copy all of this over here. I don't want that last note. Let's just copy, make sure we're copying that. Take that and put it right here. So all together it sounds like this. Now let's bring in the snare. Once again, there's pitch work on the snares as well. It's a little too low. All right, so there's our snare pattern. We're not done yet. On this note right over here and over here, we're gonna pitch just that MIDI over to the right. So what we're gonna do is gonna go into our MIDI automation here, and we're gonna change it from note velocity over to pan. We'll go to pan absolute. So what we're gonna do on this note right here is pitch that over, not pitch, push it over to the right. Let's just make sure that we're just pitching that and not this one. All right, and we're gonna copy over the same data to this last node right here as well. All right, so now let's get to that 808. So I do already have the effects already done here, but I'm gonna go ahead and take them off so you know exactly how to get that 808 sound that's in this track or something similar. It is starting off with a Spins 808, so just keep that in mind. There's just a lot of distortion that happens afterwards. Go duplicate this over. There are two 808 patterns. This is the first one. We'll get to the second one in a minute. Let's just get to that effects to make that sound ring out like in the original track. To start off on my 808 here, we do have some drive pushing just to start things off here. Just to really fatten that up. Next, let's bring in Logic's Fat Effects. We'll go to Multi-Effects, Fat Effects. I'm just gonna turn off the bass enhancer here for the moment, the compressor as well, and I'm gonna turn down our distortion. Let's focus our attention to the bandpass right here. Let's go and solo this out so you hear what's happening. So what this is gonna allow us to do is focus on a certain area of the 808 and distort that rather than distorting the low end, because it could really mess things up. When you're adding saturation distortion to an 808, you typically don't want to have it on the low end because that will just distort like crazy. You want to happen, all that distortion happens on the higher frequencies of the 808. So we're going to really like focus in on the sound here. So what we're going to do is reject the mix, and now anything that we apply afterwards is only going to listen to this section right here and apply the distortion to that. Now let's bring in our distortion unit. We're going to add some bit crusher. So we're kind of getting that sparkle now. Let's change our second type to squared. Now take a listen if we didn't have this set in the first place. It'll sound like that. But right now we're just focusing on that sort of frequency range. Let's bring back the compressor to add in some punch. And then last but not least, let's push the 808 into our clipper. We really want to bring out that sort of sparkle that happens on the top of the 808. So let's bring in EQ to do just that. And like I said earlier, we're going to push the EQ quite a bit. Some will say this is wrong, but if this is the sound you want, go for it. And I take my shelf here and I'm going to really push it quite a bit here. That sort of glitter on top. All right, let's go and duplicate this over. We'll work on our second 808 pattern. We're gonna open this up here. That's all the switch up happens, just like that. And then we're going to move on to the last sound. We're going to duplicate this over. We're going to take out our trumpets. And in this section, we're going to bring in a saxophone. We're bringing up our browser. We'll go to Legacy, Logic. We'll go over to Pop Horns, and we'll go over to Soprano Sax. Let's go ahead and just duplicate this over, and all together it sounds like this. Next, I'm just going to bring in EQ to make this a little bit darker. And we're going to cut out some of the top end as well. And I'm going to also soften it up with a little bit of chorus. We'll just use the default setting that loads up. Lower the reverb a bit. And that's pretty much it. I'm just going to go ahead and arrange it, mix it, and we'll come back. We'll take a listen to the full remake that we just put together, Playboi Carti's 2024. Playboi Carti's 2024. For you Logic users out there, I'm going to go ahead and save this entire session for you, place it as a downloadable link below this video. If you don't use Logic, I got your back as well. I'm going to export mini stems, audio stems, and of course include the drum kit that you heard in this remake. You can find that entire playback down below the like button as well. If you do have any questions on this or just want to chat or have suggestions for future videos, let's talk down below. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.